So Scott, I reached out and scheduled this meeting because you had a LinkedIn post a couple of weeks ago before you went to Europe that mentioned that I think it was because AWS reInvent was coming up and some other events, and the theme was events are becoming a more and more critical part of our overall strategy. Like it really ticks a lot of different boxes, whether you're in partnerships like I was for a while, or sales, generating pipeline, account management, meeting your customers there, and things like that. And I think some of the comments in the thread resonated with me because the last big event I went to was NRF. So I've been lucky, I guess, that I haven't had to travel too much this year. But at the end of NRF, I was like, I've had a dozen or so meetings, and the follow-up that like I would typically do would take, a week or so just to make sure that I had all of my notes and I was touching on the right stuff and correlating it with whatever our goal was for like the next step in the account and stuff like that. And so I built a copy AI workflow to take some of those notes and build it into, an email generating agent so that you could get that follow-up done faster.
Yeah. So, that's really interesting. Yeah. Cause that was kind of the impetus of that post was I had met and I'm working with a handful of founders now that are using events as their primary lead gen strategy, right? They're not paying SDRs, they're not paying for SEO. They're just pure all in on events. And I think to your point, Drew, like the important part is that follow-up. So I'm keen to kind of get your take on what you built. It was in copy, right?
Yeah, I built it in copy AI. You could probably do something similar in Zapier or Make. The benefit, in my opinion, of copy AI is that you've got a level of refinement in the prompts that you can do, and you can select different large language models. You can also plug it into what I think is a big differentiator. I don't know if copy AI views it this way, but having their info base where you can have your proprietary data in a central store that's GDPR and SOC 2 compliant and all of those other things. So it's like, you can have your account information perhaps, or some of your brand information stored in there and use that to inform some.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. And so, the workflow that I have built is pretty generic, right? Intentionally, because I might repurpose it for several different events, use cases, things like that. So what we'll do is I'll open up the share screen. I'll kind of walk you through the initial workflow that I've got set up, and I'll show you how that works. We'll show you the results, how we can scale that, and then we'll actually walk back a little bit and show you how you might be able to set this up yourself.
Cool. Thanks.
So, well, as it usually goes, I'm probably going to fumble a little bit while I go to share my screen. So pardon that. We're going to get into, I'm sure, the Doctor Who view is what I call it. Not everybody gets that nerd joke, but where we get the infinite screen.
Yep.
All right.
There it is.
All right. So now we should see, exactly. Now we should see the copy AI workflow in front of you. And it's a white screen that says test workflow in purple on top. Do you see that?
No, hold on. I don't. I just see the black Doctor Who infinite screen there.
Okay, not a problem. And that's why we will try again. And I'll just share the individual tab and we'll adjust as necessary. So now you should be able to see that tab.
Yes.
All right, great. Okay, so to provide sort of a baseline of the way copy AI works versus some of the other AI solutions that you may have worked with. Most people have worked with ChatGPT. Some people are using Anthropic. I like Claude quite a bit. That's Anthropic.
I do too. I think it's really good.
And the latest buzz that I've noticed is like people are concerned, or there have been a lot of posts. It's like, oh my gosh, there's a $200 a month license now for ChatGPT. Do I move to Anthropic, Claude? And I'm like, maybe. You could also go to Copy AI and do their less expensive plan, and you have unlimited chats, which is also good. But the difference between like a chat type of AI interaction is that in Copy AI is that you can do a few things that will really make your outreach better. One is that you can have this framework set up and reuse it over and over and over again, instead of having to have a Notion doc with every single prompt in it and then just copying and pasting and putting that into ChatGPT, right? That's certainly helpful to do that, but this, I think, makes it even more so. So you can repeat that. The other thing that I would say is a differentiator, as I mentioned before, is you can have a unique info base. So this is GDPR, SOC 2 compliant. So you can have all of your sensitive data in your info base and reference this at scale across these different workflows too. So, you know, if for whatever reason in my follow-up email, I wanted to reference some of my proprietary brand data or something like that, I could do that.
Oh, that's cool. So is the info base just like a big knowledge base of, okay.
Yeah, I
And that's
won't show you mine
replacing,
because I do have some sensitive data in there.
okay. And that's replacing Airtable or, to your point, Notion as a store for your LLM?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yes,
okay.
I think that's a good comparison. Now, that said, I would love to go through this exercise in Airtable too, because I think Airtable sort of opens up a whole other realm of possibilities. And I'm not here to like sell you on one solution over another. So I think that's what's kind of cool and compelling is like, hey,
I'm actually working on building that now. So like we can catch up in a week or so and compare notes on that.
Sweet. So the idea inside of this workflow is that we're going to have some inputs. And now in another conversation, we could probably talk about triggers, right? Things that are going to trigger the workflow to take place. And there's an option to trigger things based off of API, as you can see here. So get API and endpoint information, all that. We won't go through that exercise now. But the idea here is we're going to add some inputs. And like I mentioned earlier, I'm going to keep it, in this case, fairly generic. I'm going to grab the LinkedIn profile URL, the email address, some short notes about the conversation we had at the event, and the name of the event. You don't have to have all of those. You could probably even have just the email address, do the research about the LinkedIn profile, all that. But I think there's a certain level of fidelity you want to maintain by having some intimacy in there. So I think that's worthwhile. And what you're going to do in Copy AI that I like and that I think is unique is these inputs are going to inform all of these steps that exist below. So things like scraping the LinkedIn profile, extracting what the interests might be, and then writing the follow-up email. And within those, if I were to go to the scraped LinkedIn profile, of course, it's going to reference that input of the LinkedIn profile. But if we were to go to extract interests, we can refine these prompts however we want, right? So in this case, it's fairly generic. I'm going to keep it pretty generic. So AI assistant who's skilled at scanning LinkedIn profiles. If we wanted to update this to be more relevant to our business, we may include something like you are an SDR who is skilled at scanning LinkedIn profiles. That's all good. Personal interests. And then we might add some more context as to give it the ability to make assumptions and do some creative thinking.
Yeah.
So in this
case, does Copy go out and do the LinkedIn scraping, or is there another way to do that? Okay, that's pretty slick.
This another thing that I like about Copy is it gives you that ability. I think you can do that in Zapier and make.com. I haven't played with it, so it's worth exploring. So like Scott, what would you, if you were to coach an SDR on what to look at in a LinkedIn profile, what would you provide?
I mean, I think, will this ascertain like what the person's persona is based on their title?
We can do that. I can add that as a prompt.
Okay. I mean, it would be really interesting, like, because first of all, like in this example, like I'm not sure what conference we're following up with, so that's going to be a little bit different.
We'll pretend reInvent, so since that was last week.
Okay, that's fair. I think that I would want to look at, okay, what is their title? Do they have their job responsibilities on their LinkedIn? Do they have successes on their LinkedIn where you can then ascertain what were the person's interests, or what are the person's kind of goals or things that they're trying to get into? I'm not saying it very well. But what I mean is, like, okay, if I say, oh, I'm like a good salesperson, then you can discern from that what it is that might be valuable to me coming out of something like reInvent. I would want to look at tenure at the company. I would want to look at, has this person changed jobs in the company? Like, are they progressing their career? I've had the same title for 20 some odd years. What else would be interesting to see? Did they come from competitors, or did they come from different industries? Like, that's probably, like, for the purpose of this argument, Drew, I think that's probably, like, enough.
Yeah. Now, in this workflow, some of those may be, I don't know, like above and beyond, right? Because this is,
yeah, sure.
I gave it some instructions farther down saying, hey, you already know this person. This is, and I'll show you actually in my write the follow-up email. Yeah. So salesperson, warm, personalized follow-up emails, great. All this is dandy. But then I was like, your tone should be familiar. This is a contact you've either had a long history of collaborating with or a strong connection already. Now, this is where you could, again, edit and add your own steps to this. Most of my conversations at conferences are with people that I already know, or, I mean, I'd like to pretend that I'm such an engaging, warm person that people like are happy to hear from me, so I don't have to do as much of the rapport building. But you know, you can of course edit that however you like. This is what I think is really cool, right? And what I think makes Copy AI a valuable tool versus some of the other solutions that offer you workflow building tools in AI, right? Is that ability to add your color. So, like an anecdote, I have worked with companies where they've had, for example, the CMO is really good at writing these really engaging emails, and they've got a specific format and things like that. They will plug that in, and all of their SDRs will use that. All of their sales reps will use one that their VP of sales sort of structured and whatnot.
How do you do that and incorporate your own personality? Like, that's always kind of like, I think that was actually a big challenge we had at Cloudinary. Was we hired Winding by Design to do all of our emails for us, and it basically took the personality out of the SDR, and they were just like copying and pasting and sending out hundreds of these emails that were getting no responses because there was just like no personality to it, nor was it like super personalized.
So I think there's two things that I would address that with. One is that as opposed to using a templated approach, which is really common with a lot of those sales coaching companies that are out there, and a lot of the sales tools that SDRs have used in the past, is like they will use a templated approach where you're adding a placeholder for a specific data point, and it'll populate everything the same for every single email, with the exception of that placeholder for like name, title, area of interest, and stuff like that.
Yeah.
LLMs do a really good job, if you prompt them correctly, at having personality. And so there's a few things that you can do in this background information. Now, again, this is Copy AI specific. Background information is the way they look at it. When you're writing a good prompt in AI, and Scott, I know that you've been working in AI quite a bit lately, and so feel free to like bounce it and push back. But like the format that I follow is like, give the large language model the information you need, give it the task, and then give it the personality, is the way I would write a prompt in, you know, Claude or ChatGPT.
Wait, say that. What was that order again?
So information.
Yep.
That might be something like, so when I'm writing a prompt, just a raw prompt in ChatGPT, I'll usually say, and I don't know everything that I want to know when I'm doing this research, so I might say something about, let me use a recent example. working with government contractors. Like I don't have the breadth of experience working with government contractors that some of my clients do. So the first line of my prompt will be giving it that background and have it do that sort of research on its own, right? Where it's like, you are an experienced CMO for a government contracting agency that does IT work for the Department of Defense.
Got it. Okay.
So that's like the information gathering portion, and you can give it specific details. So using another example, I was doing real estate research, right? And I was like, okay, if I were to move to the New York area, this is the background information I would want my real estate agent to have. I'd want it to know where the schools are good, what has a good commute time to the city, or a reasonable commute time to the city. I would give it some specific instructions, like, to me, a reasonable commute time to New York City, if I can be hybrid, is an hour and a half, right? I wouldn't feel that way in Utah. Like anything longer than 30 minutes in Utah is too long. But, sort of giving it that context and saying, this is the information that you will look up. If that makes sense. And then the next step is, what's the task to be performed? And so that task, we'll use the real estate example again, is once you know all that information, I would want my real estate agent to know, not to know, but to do the research to figure out what neighborhoods have a good commute time, good schools, for my kids, good football programs, and things like that, right? And then it's going to do that research. And then the last step is add the personality and formatting, right? So the personality and formatting go together somewhat ironically, I guess. And you can see that here in the way Copy AI has it set up.
Yeah, interesting. Okay.
Yeah, I think Chris has done a phenomenal job at Copy AI. I think the product team is rock solid. And so this is a great framework, even if you're not using Copy AI. It's a great framework to follow if you're using ChatGPT, if you're using Claude.
Okay, interesting. Cool.
All right. So with all of that, right, you can even add additional refinements. Another thing that makes Copy AI cool. So we've been talking about how we like Claude, but if we wanted to use one of the other models, we could do that. This is probably getting more in the weeds than people would usually want to do, and I'll explain why. All of the different LLMs, and you could, if you watched Zuckerberg's latest update to Llama, right? He's talking about the size of the model, and initially the idea was, oh, we want a big model, we want all this information. And Zuck's latest thing was, we've got this smaller model that's just as performant, meaning you're going to have faster response times, fewer hallucinations, perhaps fewer hallucinations, but that's kind of the idea there. And so there's a lot of nuance between all of these, and I let Copy AI do that decisioning for me because, there's a lot.
I was thinking for this purpose, they're all we're not talking about oh, let's go diagnose mammograms or something like that. We're writing sales letters. Let's not overcomplicate this.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? I've done enough of the A/B testing with all of the different LLMs, and when you plug in the same prompt, you're basically getting the same letter from all four of them. Yeah.
But you can do adjustments to the creativity.
Nice.
The less creative, I've found that to be really helpful if you're doing technical writing, right?
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. So if we were to get on a call with April Trask, who's doing work, and of course they're probably going to use Writer to do their enablement. Yeah. use their LLM. But if we were to talk to April or Stacy, we would probably recommend something like less creative, because it's going to take the data as it came and output it almost identical, just in a new format, right? But
for the purpose of this, following up from a trade show, that's probably fine.
Probably fine.
Yeah.
The other thing that I forgot to mention is that you could have your reps each add their own tone of voice. And there's this brand voice tool inside of Copy AI which does a brand voice analysis. Now you can do this in Copy AI, you could do it in ChatGPT as well, or Claude, whatever. But in this brand voice, I pasted a handful of my emails in so it could do that analysis. Mm-hmm. And this is the result of that from.
Oh, that's slick. Okay.
Yeah. So you can save this. You could make this as your default. And then you could, this is usually the way you're going to do it, is actually put that into the background information itself. So I'll just say your tone should be, there we go. All right.
Yep, I like it.
Now, if we were on a cooking show, people would have like changed the channel already. So we'll jump forward a little bit and show you the baked version of this now. So I'll click Save Action. And we'll go into test workflow. And you'll see I actually already ran this with your profile.
Oh, cool.
Your email address based off of the conversation. It actually kind of helped me piece up the intro to this call. So you can see that I've got your LinkedIn profile, your email address, some of the notes. I just said AWS reInvent because that's the most recent big industry. Yeah. And I'll if we take a look here, we'll see what ran before I save these changes. So extracted your interests. I'd say most of these are pretty good.
Yeah,
100%. And if we take a look at the draft email, it was fantastic catching up with you yesterday and brainstorming how we can combine our expertise to help SaaS companies scale their sales operations. And I was actually quite pleased with this. I was like, okay, hit the points I wanted. So let's do this since I made some edits.
Can you, I mean, I look at that, Drew, and I go, okay, like good email, really long.
Yeah. So we can set limits as well. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And I actually agree with you on the length. And you've probably noticed this. I guess we probably slacked more than we emailed, but maybe it's from studying political science in undergrad, but all of my teachers were like, don't use 10 words when 3 will do.
Exactly.
And so what we'll do.
Well, you and I had that conversation many times.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it is a real big challenge for me personally.
Yeah.
So in some of this language I would change, like particularly intrigued, like I don't love that. So we could probably make edits to this tone a little bit further. And what you would typically do is have somebody who would be
there you go,
an SME
maximum length.
Yeah. So maximum length, let's do words, and I don't know what would be appropriate. Like 150?
Yeah.
Save that action.
I actually don't know what 150 words looks like.
Yeah.
And it's tough to visualize because like on a computer screen, it's probably really manageable. And on a phone, you're like, oh, Jesus.
Yeah. Let me see. I'm going to add one more thing here to my tone and say like bullet points are your best friend. When tables are applicable, use a table too. And so that's another thing that Copy AI and ChatGPT is just like you have to be very specific in the table formatting that you would use. But I've used that to create tables of qualitative data quite a bit. I don't
that's cool. I like that. I actually like that prompt a lot. Bullets are your best friend.
Yeah. So let's see if that improved at all. Run test workflow. And so this is really helpful. What we'll get to next is how we can take a sheet that maybe you've got all of your notes in. Of course, this is like expecting your reps to be in the habit of putting details into a spreadsheet instead of having it just directly in Notion or wherever they might have it.
Or can you pull it from Salesforce or?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
You can trigger it in Salesforce. I'll show you that in a minute too. So let's see. Yeah, so the opening sentence / paragraph a lot tighter.
Yep.
This is, yeah.
It's good.
I really like this. Yeah, so the table format, what we would do, let's go back.
It doesn't, maybe this is just like a setting, Drew, but it doesn't have like a quick reminder of who you are.
Oh, right. And we could.
I guess I'm gonna say like this is a good follow up for like, I don't know, this call as an example.
Yeah.
But like if I attended reInvent, I've probably talked to 70 people, maybe more. Right? Like there needs to be like some kind of, hey, you know what? We talked about X subject. You can't buy our booth. We're the ones with fuzzy bear stuffed toys or whatever.
Yeah. So I'll say it could be something as simple as remind the recipient who you are, but you may actually reference something from your info base or someplace else where you've got some of that proprietary stuff.
Yeah.
Any number of different things that you might edit to that. When I think of scaling this, if it were me and I were RevOps or sales manager or SDR manager, my mind would go to how do I prompt this in such a way that it will both provide context about my company and my rep without them having to input data.
Yeah.
And so that's probably where the info base would come.
Good call.
Yeah. And you can reference that info base at the hashtag. So I'll hit hashtag and you'll see all of the different workflow inputs, all of the other actions that preceded this. And then, all of this, and of course, this is like my proprietary stuff. You can't see it except in the hashtags, but all of your proprietary stuff would be available.
Oh, cool. Okay.
What's cool about the info base is that you can also organize your tags together. So, I don't mind sharing that, I've been doing work with Dental Ray. And so I want to be able to organize all of my information about Dental Ray into a few hashtags because I've got a lot of Dental Ray data, but I don't want to reference every single piece. And I also don't want to have to enter every single document in there. So
nice.
Yeah. So let me get rid of that hashtag since it's meaningless now. So yeah, let me now go to share, we go back and we'll upload a table view. So if you had, hang on, I need to publish these changes. Yes, publish workflow. So now what I can do is import a CSV that might have all of my meetings in it. So here's my event follow-up. Here's my information. Everything seems to be mapped okay, but let's see what the next steps are. Okay, sample data, template columns. So LinkedIn profile URL, email, notes, name of event. So I'm going to do that mapping.
Oh, cool. Okay.
And now with this, when I import it, and we can trigger this, like you said, Scott, we can trigger this through Salesforce or HubSpot as well, or any API.
Yeah.
So this actually might be a stellar use case. Like every time you scan at an event, you're putting in, of course, you're getting their, at least their email information, their company information. But then your reps should be adding their notes. And in that case, you could probably trigger that action to take place or this workflow to run every time that record gets added to your CRM from that event. That's the way I would see that working. Interesting. Okay. I don't see the data in here. So let's do import again and see what happens. And it could just be the monkey and not the banana. Oh, I think I see what I did here. Wait, no, I want all of these to be imported. Select header rep. Okay, got it. Columns, already did that. Import. All right, let's see. There we go.
Yeah, that looks better.
Looks better. And then I'll run all of these. And this is where the pricing comes in. This is going to take workflow credits.
Yeah.
And that's when you get into Somebody like myself, I'll probably never need an enterprise license myself, but companies I'm talking to, I am pushing them toward enterprise licenses.
Yeah, well, of course. Yeah, sure.
So we take a look
Yeah,
at
you're doing a couple dozen of these a week, and they're doing several hundred of them a week. Like, yeah, it's a big difference.
Yeah. So it looks like for some reason it didn't catch my name. That's okay. Well, that's a matter of making sure. But and the other thing to note is that while this was generated inside of this table view, you could also automatically push this into your CRM, or you could push this into SalesLoft or Outreach or wherever you're going to be sending these from as well.
Yeah, that's really slick.
Yeah. So that's where it really scales well. I mean, I personally love it. It's been extremely helpful to me. And it didn't even take that many credits. It took 6 credits for Jason's profile. It's going to vary a little bit, but you can see some of these are opening pretty standard, like fantastic connecting with you yesterday, whatever, but your insights at focused image are spot on. Yeah. So all of these things, like I did all of that research. This focused image is somebody I'm working with, so I can tell you that that's accurate. And the other thing to note is I didn't include a subject line generator, but we could also add a subject line generating step to that.
Yeah. Yeah, I figured as much. And it generated a decent subject line.
Yeah. So yeah, that's what I had prepped for today.
That's pretty slick, man. That's very, very cool. So, and you could plug in, like if you met 60 or 70 people at a trade show, you could just drop in their information. Do you have to drop in their LinkedIn, or will it discern that?
No, you don't have to drop in their LinkedIn. It could actually do the research to find that as well. Yeah.
That's pretty neat.
Yeah.
It's really neat.
So yeah, when we think about like how this could scale, there's a few different options for it, right? You could trigger that based off of account created from a trade show, any number of ways we might think about how you're setting up that trigger. And then you could even probably, have the tone of voice be mapped to the sales rep as well. If you've got that as a field that you're capturing inside of your CRM, it's probably the way I would do it, right? If everything goes through your CRM, then you're going to be able to get all of those data points that are related to the account, and then all of the, additional information can be added through.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's very cool. That's really, really cool. I like it.
Yeah. So
I like it a lot. That's cool.
To the general audience, anybody watching this, when we put this on LinkedIn, feel free to hit Scott or myself up. Don't go to wasome.digital yet. It's a horrible website. I'll get it set up. In the meantime, you can actually book time with me through Park City, because I'm also instructing up there as well. So
let's go.
I'll charge you more for one-on-one time without skis on my feet. So you get a discount by skiing with me.
Game sales. I love it.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Well, I'm going to stop recording.
Dude, that's awesome. Thank you. Thanks for walking me through that. That's really cool.